Greetings everyone. Today we're going to explore the domain and range of a set of numbers. A couple of things we need to have in our notes and to remember is that the domain is the x values of a set and the range is the y values of a set. Another way to remember so you don't get them mixed up is alphabetical order. If I have a point, it's always x comma y, which means that's the domain followed by the range. So D comes before R and X comes before Y. Now I have four expectations when it comes to stating the domain and the range. The first is that you need to label. You can use the letter D and R, but you need to label. I'm going to request that you use what I call squiggly brackets, meaning no boxed off brackets. Oops, sorry, my pen. And no parentheses. Those are different. A squiggly set of brackets identifies a set of numbers, so that's very specific, okay? So we have to work on that notation. I want you to put the numbers in numerical order from least to greatest, okay? We want our information to be organized, and that'll make it much easier. And the fourth rule is no repeats. If you have the same number multiple times in your set, you don't need to write it multiple times. That's irrelevant. So no repeats. Let's take a look at this first example. First, I'm going to talk about the domain. I need to label domain, or the letter D. I need to start my set with squiggly bracket. And domain is dealing with the x values. So I'm looking at that set of numbers. Numerical order from least to greatest would mean I start with a -6, followed by a -3, then a 0, and then a 3. There are no repeats, which is good, and I'm going to close my set. The second information I need to identify is the range, which is the y values. So if I start with R, I'm going to do a squiggly bracket. The smallest y value is -1. Next would be 0, and next would be 2. I need to close my bracket. Now, even though that 0 is used twice, I don't write it twice because I don't want any repeats. And let's tie this into a previous lesson and talk about if it's a function. This is a function because if I look at the x values, there are no repeating x's, and that's good. We do not want any repeating inputs. Let's take a look at this example. First, I'm going to identify domain. I'm going to use a squiggly bracket, and I'm interested in the x values. So if I go in numerical order, I would be starting with a -3. I'm going to cross them off as I use them. Next, I notice there's another -3, but I do not want duplicates, so I'm going to cross that off right away. The next number would be a 0, then a 1, then a 2, and then a 4. And I'm going to close my set of numbers with a squiggly bracket. Next, I'm going to state my range. Range is my y values. The smallest y value is -3, followed by -2, 1, 2, 3, and then 5. I need to end my set with a squiggly bracket. Let's decide if this is a function. If I look at all the x values, this is not a function because I have repeating x's. So I'm going to say no, there's repeating x's. Let's take a look at a graph example. The first thing I'm going to do on this one is I am going to state the coordinate values of each of these. So I have 5, 2 here. I have 0, 0 here. This one I have 0.5 or a half, and then a -3. And C is at -4.5, comma, -4.5. So we can have decimals in our sets. That's okay. Let's start with domain and squiggly bracket. I want the smallest x value, which is -4.5. The next would be 0. The next numerical order would be 0.5. and the last x value is 5. Let's take a look at our range. Our range is our y values. The smallest y value I have on my graph is negative 4.5, followed by a negative 3, followed by a 0, and followed by a 2. And I need to close my set with a squiggly bracket. Let's take a look. Is this a function? I would say yes, because there's no repeating x values. That's good. That's what we want. But because it's a graph, I would also accept that it passes the vertical line test. The last example is looking at a set of points. So first of all, to state my domain, D, squiggly bracket, I'm looking at all the x values, and conveniently, they're already in order, and there's no repeats. Now let's take a look at our range. Our squiggly bracket, our range is our y values, and you'll notice I have repeats. The smallest is 3, but I don't want the second one, followed by 7, don't want the second one, and then 9, and I don't want the second one, no repeats. So my sets might have a lot of numbers or not as many, and that's okay. To decide if this is a function, I'm going to look at my x values, and they're all unique, so that's good. Yes, this is a function because there's no repeating x's. All right, so make sure that you check out Google Classroom to see what assignments we need to complete, what the expectations are. Let me know if you have any questions, and until next time, have a good one.